Okay. Evening, everybody. So I want to share a bit of my journey with what community means to me. And I looked at the definition of community, and one resonated more with my own experience, which is a community is a group of people that care about each other and feel they belong together. And when I look back in my life, I can see I have always had a strong sense of community, although my relationship with it has also been ambivalent. So I grew up in a small town in France, in a place where people lived closely in flats, in small buildings, and they were at the border of fields. And I spent at the time all my free time playing with the children of the area, so either outside or in each other's home. So we functioned very much as a unit, even if we were from different ages or background. And yeah, we obviously also covered for each other when we did something naughty. And we were also very creative in inventing new games and activities. Well, at the time, there was no internet, and we only had 2 TV channels. So that was quite important to be creative. We did care about each other. And yeah, there was a sense of belonging. It felt at the time, like belonging to a big family. But at the same time, this was not my experience in my family unit, which was very much dysfunctional. So I didn't feel much care. And I thought at some point I was adopted, as I had a strong sense of not fitting in. I guess both experiences gave me this sense of ambivalence towards community, which translated in developing as a very independent and self-sufficient person, and at the same time, longing to be part of a community, to belong. And I can see that this theme repeating itself throughout my life. For example, when I lived in Honduras in my early 30s, I immersed myself in the Latin American culture. And this is a culture where, there's really a very strong sense of community, especially around families. But at the same time, I worked as a consultant there on different projects in rural sustainable development. And that means I had to travel a lot, and often on my own, which was quite unusual for women, especially there. So the other common theme that, although there were overall positive experiences, and I still have close friends from that time, is that I felt something important was missing. The sense of belonging was mainly coming with having to fit in, which I was finding limiting after a while. Something essential was not really there. And this in return was reinforcing my other tendency of independence and self-sufficiency. And about 15 years ago, so I've been in Cambridge for more than 17 years now, and joined the center a year after moving to Cambridge. It's quite a long time. So I joined the Tri Ratna spiritual community, which was the FWBO at the time. And I've been reflecting on what has been the impact for me in being part of this community, and to compare it with, my previous experiences. And I can say that it has challenged me and has opened opportunities in ways I would never have imagined, which have gradually changed me, and in some areas also transformed me. So how had this been different from my previous experience of community? What I've been encouraged and supported to do is to discover and express my own authenticity, my true self, and to develop my own potential in a way that works for me. It hasn't been based on a sense of safety due to being like others or based on affinities, but about feeling safe in embracing the differences, mine and those of others, which is challenging and requires to be brave and taking risks. But in return, I feel that it has also provided a fantastic ground for growth. And I also benefited from more experienced practitioners who have generously shared their knowledge and their wisdom and shown the conditions to sustain this process of spiritual growth. And this without expecting anything in particular in return. And sometimes I felt I had to be a certain way and was reacting when nudged to do something. After being around in the Buddhist center, someone asked me, so when are you going to ask to be a mitra? And in a moment, I could feel, oh, why are you asking me this? But with times, I realized that that often it was because someone or these people could see a potential that I couldn't see myself at the time. So reflecting back, I can see that it has been my choice to make changes in my life if I wanted to, and when I felt ready for it. So it has been also essential in this process to build up and to deepen my relationships and friendships with all the members and also with my peers, because all of this process, it takes time, dedication and effort. It takes time to get, the glimpses of reality Yanavacha was talking about earlier. And this is possible because there's a commitment on both sides to support each other in our spiritual development beyond the difficulties and differences, because we have a common vision which was transmitted originally from the Buddha, that our spiritual development is not ours as such, but it is also for the benefit of all beings. And I wanted also to share how it has translated in terms of transformation. So with the support of the spiritual community, I started to realize that my identification, we talked about earlier about identity. So my identification with being independent and self-sufficient was a way to keep people at distance and to feel safe. And later, I could see more clearly that this tendency was also creating suffering of dukkha for me, because it was also keeping me away from connecting with people, and deep down, I wanted to connect. So there was a sense of false illusion of safety and control. And further down the line, I realized that the root of it was that I was also keeping distance with myself in the first place. And in this moment of realization, I could really see and feel all the suffering it has created for years. But at the same time, I could also feel, because I was seeing it more clearly, something was released. And there was also a deep sense of joy and of peace. There was a big weight lifted off my shoulders. And saying it now, it seems quite, simple and obvious, but I can assure you that it has taken me a long time to be able to see that so clearly. And it doesn't mean that everything is sorted out forever, but it has changed my relationship with this big tendency of mine, and it doesn't have the same hold on me. So I'm still independent and self-sufficient, and I think that's also positive, but I'm not longer so attached to it. So I don't identify myself to it so strongly anymore. So it was interesting to see, because I broke my elbow like a few weeks ago. And before, my tendency would have been to just say, okay, I can do it by myself and not ask for help. And this time, that was not the case. I could see what I could do by myself, but also I could see that I needed support, and it was fine to ask for it. And all these kind of, as I said, those kind of glimpses, they have allowed me to become more fully connected with myself, but also by extension with the community and also with others in general. So in conclusion, I'm part of a spiritual community, but I don't feel it's limiting me. Instead, it has expanded possibilities, as I said before, beyond what I could have imagined. And it has also expanded my sense of interconnection with others. So, thank you.
So Live United, I think it's great when you're given a title and you just see what comes out of that. My first thought was, if the Sangha had a football team, that's probably what we would be called. And why does football come to me first when thinking of United? I'm not a football fan, nor can I play it very well. But from the outside, it looks like being part of a team, having a shared goal. That's the end of my jokes. They have a shared identity, and being part of something together, in a uniform, belonging and a sameness. And I think that is something great to aspire for. And I can see why a lot of people do gravitate towards things like team sports. There is something inside of us that wants to feel part of a bigger picture, part of going for something together. So reflecting back at when I first came to the Buddhist Center, which was about 5 years ago, it's very strange because people become your friends very quickly, and it's there's almost a step that's missed. You're like, I've only just met you and I'm sharing all these personal details about myself. You're really listening to me. I see you genuinely care. It's very strange. I remember finding it strange, but at the time, no, I was returning from living abroad and I didn't really have any friends. I sort of was quite a different person. I'd grown up around here. I was quite a different person from who I was before I left. So going on retreat, I remember just feeling at home, my first retreat, feeling very at home very quickly. And I'd lived in a couple of shared houses in Canada where I'd been previously and loved it. And it was reminiscent of that, this eating together, playing together, just doing things together. And I really enjoyed it. And at the same time, as I was learning about this thing called community, and you know, I had visited other communities in my travels of different natures, but I was learning a lot about community, and I was quite warming to it, and even considered, you know, perhaps living in one. But I had already embarked on building my tiny home, which is where I live now, and still am here. The foundations were literally already laid, and so I remember feeling quite torn that actually building a house for myself that's only big enough, you know, barely just fits me and my life in, didn't feel quite what I was after. But I had already stepped along this path, and so I continued. But I did visit some communities. I did stay in Abbey House, and I was welcome to the Herbert Street community for extended periods, as well as 9A, visiting for dinner and the likes. But yeah, the Herbert Street community took me in when I was supposed to have finished building this. I was living in a tent at the time. It got to December and I needed to go indoors whilst I finished this, and they took me in for a couple of months. So I really do, perhaps may or may not be able to speak on behalf of the communities, but I do recommend you visit. You know, maybe stay a night or two. They're very welcoming, and it's a great experience, even if you're not considering it. Definitely shaped my view of how people can live together. So yeah, 5 years on, I'm still in my one-person house, and then COVID struck. My house is in the garden of my family home, and of course, COVID showed us how we all had to come together, and I was really glad to be here with my family. They let me turn over a large part of the garden to growing vegetables. My mum lost her income stream, and so because I'm a carpenter, I was able to continue working, and I felt great that I could increase my contribution to the family. And it just, you know, for the first, not the first time, but we did feel more like a family. And I think that was the case for a lot of people who were living in proximity to each other. You became more responsible for one another. Your actions had a more obvious impact on people. And so at the time that happened, yeah, I was doing the renovation at the Thrive Cafe, which is something that came out of the Sangha. And that's really what I've been thinking about in this talk. What has come out of the Sangha for me? So yeah, a lot of you know, that was a big project for myself, one of my first ones as a self-employed carpenter, and it was great to be creative like that. Other things that have come out of Sangha, Shobhanaga and Simone took me to the East Devon Forest Garden for a Diabija, which Sagarvajra has masterfully created. It's an extraordinary place, and has planted a seed in my mind for the way I want to live. I really recommend you look up the forest garden that he's created. So Shobhanaga and Simone, I hadn't known them very long, but like this jumping a step, because they listen, because they're there, they knew who I was quite quickly. And I think they could see that Buddhafield, which is a festival run down in Somerset by a wing of Triratna, would be my sort of thing. I call them outdoor Buddhists, and I consider myself an outdoor Buddhist, and I felt right at home in the field, creating magic outside. Another thing that's come out of Sangha, not directly, but now rests in Sangha, is being an environmental activist and a member of Extinction Rebellion. And I do this with other Buddhists. I do this with Gina and Matt and Yogaratna and Cheki and Kevin Hand and Anne White and Jeremy. There's a lot of us, and it's great to be supporting one another in challenging times and feeling like we can do something about it, even just by meditating in sticky places like they were the other day outside of Barclays Bank. It's yeah, I've never felt support like that. I've never felt held in my grief for the sort of the state, the climate emergency. I never knew what to do with that pain, and now it feels very constructive, very peaceful, very thoughtful and aware. The way that we're going about our activism. Another really important part that's come out of the Sangha for me is my Mitra study. Mitra study, yeah, totally changed the way that I practice. I'm not very studious typically, and I, in my Mitra group, there's a few. There's a doctor, there's physicists, they're into their maths, and I very much am not of that ilk. I even struggle today to follow recipes because they feel too scientific. I was much more English language and drama when I was young. And so spending 4 years, we're coming to the end, we have 2 more weeks left. Spending 4 years with these gentlemen, getting to know, just that length of time with a group of people, that alone, you learn a lot about one another. But I also see the scientific parts of me that I hide, or you know, hearing their perspective, you hear that voice inside yourself that's muted so often because I've labeled myself as not interested in science, or not this way or not that way. And so in a way they can kind of speak on my behalf without me knowing it. And I think I have the same for them. I think the mix is fantastic. And so, yeah, intimately knowing different perspectives has been invaluable. And coming back to the home of one, that's now slowly coming to a close. I'm renovating a house with my brother and with friends from the Sangha and my girlfriend, and this house is next to Matt Howard's house, and we have taken down the fence between the two homes, and we are starting something. We're not quite sure what it is yet, but there is going to be very much a living united essence to it. It's really going to grow into something that I think is going to play a very important role in the rest of my life, in how I want to live. So yeah, those are the things that have come out of the Sangha for me, which, when thinking about it in just a short time, is quite a lot. And I wouldn't consider I'm a massive giver to the Sangha. I must be in some capacity. I do participate in I have helped on courses and things, and being asked to give this talk, I suppose, is giving to the Sangha. But I'm kind of surprised that really, you know, you only have to give a little bit to the Sangha and it just gives you so much back. It really is a magic thing like that. And so, yeah, I recommend all of the things that I have partaken in, be it the Buddha Field Festival, Extinction Rebellion. There is an open invitation to any other Buddhists that would like to join us. And Mitra study, if you've not already embarked on that. And just, yeah, experiencing living together wherever possible. So thank you for living with me. Thank you.
Thank you, Cameron. Thank you very much